Happy weekend, everyone. Josh of Severe Weather. Thank you for joining. If you have served or are serving in the military, I want to welcome you very much. I'm representing my limited time in the Air Force here, a long ways back. Everyone else, I appreciate you joining me as well. We're going to talk some tropics, and then we're going to focus in on some bigger problems here in the eastern United States this weekend with flash flooding once again. It seems like the second weekend in a row we're talking broken record, but once again, a potential big problem for us here in the Northeast and especially parts of New England. Dangerous flooding is in the forecast. We've had a little bit of that this weekend already, but more of a threat as we head later into today and especially tomorrow, the farther north and east you get. And this is very much the same spot that dealt with it here last weekend. As we get into Monday, fortunately, this threat for threat for flash flooding is not going to carry northward into Vermont like last week did, but we very much are going to be dealing with some nasty, nasty amounts of rain, and rivers are already high, and property is again going to be threatened by this flooding. I'm going to talk tropics first, and then we'll get back to the United States here. But you can see we do have a couple of named storms that are not affecting any areas of mainland at the time being. This is subtropical storm Dawn, well out in the north central Atlantic, no threat to land. This is Hurricane Calvin. This will be something that we are going to be watching in Hawaii here next week. Now, it is starting to weaken, and the good news is that storms that hit Hawaii typically are weakening or are remnant systems, and I do believe that is more than likely going to be the case here. And then you can see coming off of Africa, a couple of waves, but they are hitting dry air and they are going to continue to weaken. And no longer do I believe we may have a depression or storm next week over the eastern Atlantic. I just think the atmosphere is not quite there yet. The amount of lift is not there to get something sustained. That'll change in August, by the way. I am forecasting some changes coming in August. We are still kind of early in the season, despite last month's burst of storms that came through. Conditions do not favor anything in the short term. So good news for us here on the Atlantic side of things. It looks pretty, but it is not much of a system here. This is Dawn. I mean, this system doesn't even look anything like the one that hit the southeast on Memorial Day weekend, but technically it's subtropical, so it did get a name. Our fifth named storm of the season, subtropical storm Dawn. You can see the center is lacking any kind of organized convection, but it is producing enough wind in here to be classified as subtropical system. Cold center, but warm surroundings, so it doesn't fully get that tropical moniker, and I don't think it's going to, at least in the next 4 days. Some of the models do show it drifting south, so there is some potential intensification coming, but there is a split, and that's not going to be till later next week. So at this point, the Hurricane Center continues to keep it as a tropical or a subtropical storm with wind speeds minimal in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range. Right now, it's got 45 mile per hour wind. It is actually going to be moving northward and interacting with a trough, and then it's going to lose that support for moving northward and turn back down to the south next week. Water temperatures here are a little bit warmer. We may see a transition into a tropical system later next week. Regardless, it's a fish storm. It's not going to affect anybody but in the fishing lanes. Now, Hurricane Dawn is going to be more of a player for Hawaii, and it is moving into some cooler water, a lot of dry air in the way, but it is holding its own. This did become a major Category 3 hurricane yesterday. As it moves into cooler water, it is now back to a Category 2, and further weakening is expected. And by the end of the weekend, it will be a moderate tropical storm. And as we get towards next Tuesday, a low-end tropical storm. So it does look like it's going to move over Hawaii or very close to Hawaii Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. But at that point, we are dealing with cooler waters. We're dealing with a storm system that's accelerating and something that is probably going to be losing its tropical characteristics. There is a chance that we could see the Big Island put under a tropical storm watch or maybe even a warning. However, I do believe wind speeds at that time are going to be on the low end of tropical storm status. So I would not cancel plans to Hawaii. This is not going to be the big one for them. It will affect you, though, with some rain and wind, but it will be just breezing on through. And by the end of Wednesday, I do believe it's just a remnant low at that point. Here is a look at the HFAS tropical model. You can see the storm does start weakening here tonight as pressures are rising. A weakening storm is when surface pressure rises. We were in the 960s and even 950s yesterday. Now we're up into the 970s, which is Category 2 storm status. Will be 980s, Category 1 tomorrow morning. and then 990s by tomorrow night, Monday morning. That is a tropical storm. And then above 1,000, we're just talking a lower end system at that point. So this is not really going to be any worse than a low end coastal low or something that moves through the Great Lakes here in the summertime. Just not a lot of wind support with it. You'll see maximum winds 40 knots. That's about 45 miles per hour, just north and east of the coast here. We may get some higher surf on the Big Island and then across the central Hawaiian chains. That would be Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. But really, this is not a big deal. I'll track it. I'll talk to you more about it here, but I don't think it's worth canceling vacations in Hawaii over. And this is, you can see that trend just continues. Throw out the CMI model. That's not going to play out. And we're talking all models show it a tropical storm here in 48 hours. That'd be Monday morning. And then many have it as a tropical storm by Wednesday morning. Or tropical depression, I should say. Now in the Pacific, we do have a storm that's more of a threat to land for China. That is Tropical Storm Talim. Winds are now 40 miles per hour. Very disorganized, but very warm waters here, and some stronger winds are expected as the storm is forecast to intensify over the South China Sea, starting tonight and continuing tomorrow with maybe some rapid intensification south of Hong Kong. This model takes it in between Hong Kong and the I don't even know the name of this peninsula, but as a typhoon or as a strong tropical system. I think this may be over predicting it, but you can see in many cases, this storm will be strengthening today and tonight, and then a hurricane or typhoon, I guess, by the time we get to Sunday and Sunday night, with local landfall here in about 60 hours. So that would be Monday morning to Monday midday China time. So just something I wanted to mention if you are watching from overseas or you have interest here. It may impact Hong Kong. It's probably going to go north of Haikou. The name of that island is, I think, Hainan. But we do see the port city of Zhanjiang could be right in the path of this storm, and it could have wind speeds that get up to 85, 90 miles per hour. The official forecast is 90 knots. That is 105 miles per hour, and then weakening back to tropical storm after landfall here. And that's going to be right around 18Z on the 17th. So that is actually Monday morning. Tuesday morning, China time here. Z is Zulu time, GMT, Greenwich Meridian time. So probably on this peninsula here, but it may scrape Macau and Hong Kong with some tropical storm winds, probably going north of the island of Hainan at this point. So anyway, that is the tropics. Now we're going to shift focus. We'll talk severe weather and especially flooding and a progressive pattern. We've got a big trough over central Canada, more storm complexes moving across the mid and deep south, more heavy rain, more severe weather, unfortunately. Some unsettled weather here as well across the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, but we are starting to see an end to the severe weather threat as we did have tornadoes Wednesday, a little bit less tornadoes Thursday, and then we did have a few yesterday across northern Illinois and parts of eastern Michigan. So not a big severe weather weekend expected here, but we will have some active weather. The bigger problem is going to be all this moisture coming up the East Coast and lots of rain expected again in some of the same places that have seen it over the last week or so. Here's a look at the current radar, and you can see our showers and storms moving over central and eastern Illinois into Indiana. And we do need this rainfall. Unfortunately, no severe weather with it. But these storms continue. We're getting a stormy morning in Nashville and Huntsville, Alabama, and even Birmingham. No severe weather, fortunately. And then bad news, Bears, we've got more rain over eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas, where you just don't need to see anymore, and northeast Texas, by the way. Some of these places have picked up 20 plus inches of rain since May, and no drought status anymore, that's for sure. Oklahoma, you've had a brutal summer and spring. Northeast, or the Texas Panhandle just doesn't want to see any more rain at this point. We needed it, and now we don't. And then, unfortunately, Arkansas, we're getting a wet start to the weekend once again. I had big storms here in Raleigh yesterday. About 10 strikes hit the ground within a mile or two of me. It was a noisy morning. It was a noisy afternoon. And fortunately, things look quiet for now. But we're going to see more storms moving in tonight into the same region. Up the East Coast, we are going to see some moisture continuing across New England. But the big rains will be tomorrow. And that's when I think our flood threat continues to grow. We have a flash flood watch over eastern Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, eastern New York, right on up into the majority of New England, except for southern and eastern Maine. We also have a flash flood watch in effect for the eastern Florida Panhandle and surrounding states, and then heat advisories over the deep south, South Florida, interior west, and excessive heat warnings over much of California, Nevada, Arizona, and northwestern Utah. So it's either hot and dry and we need the rain, or it's very unsettled and muggy and we don't need the rain. There is no in between here, unfortunately. Quieter weather expected over Kansas and Missouri. It'll be cooler and more comfortable today, but we do have a marginal risk over the Ohio Valley and parts of the Northeast. We have a slight risk for severe weather with hail and maybe even a tornado or two over parts of eastern New Mexico and far western Texas. 15% chance for severe wind and hail. And that does extend up to just south of Denver, including Colorado Springs. That is going to be late today into tonight. No slight risks at this point tomorrow, but we'll have more heavy storms in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Also some stronger storms potentially over Nebraska and parts of the central and northern plains. And then as we head into the day on Monday, we have just a massive area of general thunderstorms. Some of them could be strong, but nothing organized, and a marginal risk across the northern and central plains, so the parts of the Missouri River Valley. But flooding is going to be the bigger story. Right now, we have a slight risk for flooding in portions of the Northeast as well as the central Appalachians. We also have a slight risk for flooding again in New Mexico and West Texas. That is today and tonight through about 8 a.m. Tomorrow, things get really bad here, unfortunately. I would not be shocked if we saw a pink high risk for flooding tomorrow along the Connecticut and Hudson River valleys. The same places that had it last weekend are again going to be getting hammered with heavy amounts of rain, just slow moving storms. Some of them could be strong. And this is the very last thing we want to see across this region. But unfortunately, it is here, and I need to forecast it and let you guys know. I would definitely be concerned here in the Catskills region, very much across the Green Mountains and the White Mountains. The Connecticut River and surrounding rivers here in Vermont very well could come out of their banks again, the Merrimack River as well. And for now, Boston does have some flooding forecast, but I think the worst stays west of you. Same goes for Augusta and Portland, Maine. And this is for the day on Sunday. Monday, we are going to get a break, thank goodness, and no main areas. By the way, parts of the Southeast could still have some localized flooding. We are in a marginal risk as forecasting skill remains low for this, but something we're going to keep an eye on. But really, it is the Northeast that is again under the gun. Also Southeast Quebec and far western parts of New Brunswick if you happen to be joining from Canada. Here's the total precipitation forecast over the weekend. You can see amounts are 2 to 4 inches widespread. It doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, I know I picked up 2 inches in just a few hours yesterday in Raleigh, but with all the rain we've already had here this month, and with the rivers being high, it is going to be a problem, especially up against mountains. We definitely have to worry about rivers climbing quickly, water dropping quickly, and that's going to be a potential problem. Unfortunately, as we get into next Tuesday and Wednesday, more rain is forecast, and right on through the end of next week into the weekend, and we do have a potential for seeing as many as 5 inches of rain in this area in the next week. And that is just an average forecast from the Weather Prediction Center. Some of the models are even going much higher with amounts up to 9 inches in areas like the Delaware Water Gap here, for example, around just south of the Poconos, also in the White Mountains. So lots of rain being shown up on our NAM model here in just the next 60 hours. A lot of this will be later tonight and especially tomorrow and tomorrow evening. And you can see the NAM model, which goes into a higher resolution than the global models, just shows just a generally moist weather pattern here. We're probably not looking at a lot of severe weather, but we could have a few heavier storms. But look, nothing's moving quickly here tonight. It's just kind of sitting over the same spots. And then tomorrow we see the front moving in, very wet weather to start the day over central and northern New York, same for eastern PA, and just an all-out rain expected tomorrow morning over eastern PA, New Jersey, the mid-Atlantic, western New England, northern New England, and then things hopefully start moving away here in time for the late afternoon hours. But here's another wave coming through eastern PA in the evening. This is 9 o'clock tomorrow night. And so we get a few hours of a lull in the afternoon, early evening, then we get more rain coming in at night. So just overall, a big mess expected. It does finally push off the coast of the Northeast here late tomorrow night, first thing on Monday. Maine will still have some lingering showers early in the day, but Monday looks to be a lot better of a day across this area. The next disturbance does move in through the Lake Ontario and Erie regions. We're not looking at widespread weather, but there will be heavy storms crossing Kentucky, the Ohio River Valley here this afternoon, and moving into West Virginia, Western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina late in the day, and then advancing into Virginia and central North Carolina, the Piedmont towards this evening. So we may escape most of the day today without storms in the Carolinas and Eastern Virginia, but it will hit us tonight. And more storms expected here tomorrow, albeit at a lesser intensity. They'll be more isolated, but you see them popping up here around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We don't need the rain. I've seen flooding north of Wake Forest, North Carolina, Bennettsville, South Carolina. We had tornado warnings outside of Myrtle Beach, even some funnel clouds spotted yesterday. So it hasn't been widespread, but where you get hit, you're getting hit hard. And the coastal plain gets it tomorrow afternoon and evening. The low country is going to get hit hard around 7, 8 o'clock. Those storms will die off later in the evening. Monday looks to be a quieter day across the entire region, but we are not done next week, unfortunately. We are looking at things drying out in Illinois today for the most part. Indiana is still dealing with showers and storms. The western Tennessee Valley is going to have more storms later on today into tonight, but nothing widespread as far as severe weather goes. Most of tomorrow doesn't look too bad in this region, but notice how we have additional storms moving through Iowa into western Illinois towards the end of the day. And there could be some severe weather in these storms based on the updraft helicities that I'm seeing over eastern Iowa and northwestern, north central parts of Illinois early tomorrow night. This is about 9 o'clock central time. So approaching the suburbs north and west of Chicago and then dying off late in the evening and then weakening as we move through the lower lakes here late tomorrow night. The southeast is going to be very hot and humid. Nothing new there. Above average temperatures. Lots of storm fuel for more showers and storms across deep South Florida, as well as across portions of the deep South into the Carolinas. This is this afternoon. We get a break, more storms tomorrow, moving through the central Gulf states. Here you can see the front's going to dry things out a bit here over parts of the Mid-South tomorrow into tomorrow night, but the Gulf Coast region will stay very moist. And then our severe weather threat is growing as we get into the afternoon hours and into early this evening here over southeast Colorado, northeastern New Mexico into the Panhandles region. Big hail, strong winds are expected in some of these places, continuing through the nighttime hours, then fading. And it looks like Oklahoma and North Texas get the leftovers here tomorrow morning before things fall apart. And then here's our next boundary dropping through the area tomorrow afternoon. So lots on our plates this weekend. I have a very busy weekend. My daughter's 5th birthday party is later today. I'm going to try to respond to you, but I do have a new membership channel, and I'm going to prioritize responding to those folks. We just started it, so there's not a lot of folks now, but 30 cents a day, folks, is all it will take to get a quicker response from me. It's not that I don't want to help you. I'm not trying to make a big amount of money. I'm just trying to be very guarded with my time, as I'm finding I've got much less of it with family stuff going on. But you know what? I appreciate everybody who chimes in. I'm going to do my best to help you all out. If you do have friends or family members who would like to subscribe, please consider joining or subscribing and inviting them to this channel as well. I am a meteorologist. That is my gift. And I am a Christian, and I want to give all the glory to God who has called me to share the good news every day. I find that while I've got the gift of being a meteorologist, and that's important, what is really important in the end is my calling as a Christian to pray for other folks, to encourage, to lift you up, and to share the good news, the gospel of Jesus Christ through the Holy Bible. And in the book of James 4:6, but he giveth more grace, wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Submit yourselves before to God. Resist the devil, talked about that the other day, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to heaviness. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. And I feel every day that I am humbled more and more by God. Yes, I'm on YouTube, and that's not a humbling thing to do, but in my life, I try my very best not to be double-minded. James 1:8 says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. What is being double-minded? It is loving others, maybe publicly or on YouTube, and then cursing them later. It is saying you're going to do one thing or working really hard for your job and then leaving your family behind to clean up the scraps. It's not being in your family's life, or maybe it's loving your family, but not maybe not following God, maybe not carrying out his desires for you to live to your full potential. So basically what this verse says is that if you are proud, if you do not believe in God, you will not be given the grace that those who have humbled themselves before the Lord, who have asked the Lord to guide them, are not going to have God's grace, and that is eternal life through his son, Jesus Christ. He asks us to submit ourselves, to resist the devil, and to look to God in times of hardship. And not just that, but to purify our hearts. And he says here to let your laughter be turned to mourning. Basically, he's just telling people that if you're living joyfully without God in your life, that's going to be turned to mourning. Because there's also verses that say your mourning will be turned, or your mourning, mourning, not in the morning, the first part of the day, mourning will be turned into dancing. And that is people who are going through hard times but are leaning on God will be given that joy that the God provides for us. And I just want to share that good news with you. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a Christian man who loves the weather, but I also love people, and I love what God has done for me. And I really want him to do the same for you. Not going to judge you if he's not, but I'm happy to pray for you in whatever situation you're in, or maybe any of your family members are as well. I got to run, folks. Link to join is going to be in the description here. And I'm very new at this subscription, so I haven't been able to do a lot. I'm going to admit that right now, but I plan on it. And just 30 cents a day is really not that much. I just want to make sure that I'm taking care of folks the best I can, knowing that I've got limited time to do that. So please have a safe weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you all again early next week. Have a blessed day and a blessed weekend. Take care.